Russian Spetsnaz, tank columns, thousands or tens of thousands or even 200,000 Russian troops, according to President Poroshenko, are streaming across the Ukrainian border. Russian artillery is striking from Russian territory at Ukrainian targets, and hordes of Russians are occupying entire Ukrainian cities. That has been the news coming out of Ukraine for the last 2 years. Except for there's no evidence of any of this. With all the drone, satellite, and other technology available, with every soldier having a camera in their phone, none of this has been documented. So here is the closest approximation to what Ukrainian and Western media have been reporting for the last 2 years. Dear friends, I feel I can call you friends after the overwhelmingly positive response we got to our first video. However, some people commented about the so-called evidence of Russian presence in eastern Ukraine. So in this video, we will discuss that evidence, talk to locals about Kyiv's plans to starve people here into submission, and hear what top Ukrainian politicians have to say about people they supposedly want to liberate. Okay, so first of all, let me give you some appropriate technical background first. In Russia, everybody has two passports. This one, the internal passport, is a passport that everybody gets at the age of 14, usually have on them at all times, and is used for everything from buying beer and cigarettes to boarding a plane. This one is only in Russian. Then there's a second passport, the external passport, that people usually keep at home and only use to officially travel outside of Russia and come back to Russia. In the United States, for example, your driver's license is your main form of ID, which acts like the internal Russian passport, while the US passport is just like the external Russian passport that people use to leave the country. By the way, there's an agreement between Russia and Ukrainian governments that Russian citizens can come into Ukraine using just this one, the internal passport. Now, take a look at President Poroshenko's famous proof of Russian forces in Ukraine that he presented last year at Munich. I will not even point out the fact that he doesn't open a single passport, doesn't use any names or shows any pictures. But if you actually know what I just told you, and look at the passports, 3 out of 6 of them are external ones that no one in the army has in their possessions. So the picture to an outsider and Poroshenko's incompetent aides looks convincing, but to anyone in Russia it's laughable. Deniable Russian hybrid super stealth forces not only brought their internal Russian IDs, but also, for some completely unexplained reason, carried an extra form of unnecessary ID for Ukraine's president to brag about. Again, without opening a single one and showing any pictures. Another piece of evidence are the so-called satellite images. And here, again, if you don't think about it, it kind of makes sense. But as soon as you analyze things, the whole case collapses. So here are some satellite pictures that were presented as proof of Russian presence in eastern Ukraine. Can you make out anything? I can't. You might say that this is the best technology we have available. But here are the images provided by the United States of Russian planes in Syria. You can easily make everything out. The images are many times clearer. Knowing that the United States has definitely had spy satellites over Ukraine since at least early in the conflict, it is amazing that only a few images are available, and all of them have horrible resolutions, and they are provided as evidence. And if better images are not shown, maybe that means that they, and the Russian aggression they supposedly prove, are made up. And where are the images of the multiple tank columns that Ukraine claimed crossed the border? A tank column can be half a mile or even a mile long. Either all of these were made up of non-existent super-secret stealth tanks, and that is the reason why we can't see them, with all the satellites and basic phone cameras around, or, again, these columns never crossed the border. By the way, this last image was given to US Senator Inhofe by Ukrainian officials, and he presented it on the US Senate floor as proof of Russian aggression. But, just like all the other so-called proof, it turned out to be a fake, and these pictures are all the way back from 2008. However, sometimes, when Ukrainian military officials tell the truth, people are left scratching their heads. Here's Viktor Muzhenko, the head of Ukrainian General Staff in January 2015, after Ukraine was supposedly fighting Russian army for over 6 months, and he admits that
бойових дій з підрозділами регулярної російської армії на сьогоднішній день ми теж не ведемо.
#I think I said too much. And here, In October of 2015, after a year and a half of war against Russian occupation, and 3 months after President Poroshenko made the famous claim that 200,000 Russian troops are in Donbas, the head of Ukraine's SBU, the country's main intelligence agency, says that Ukraine has only documented 56 cases of participation of Russian citizens in Donbas war.
З початку воєнного конфлікту нами віддокументовано участь 56 росіян. 56 громадян Росії, які воювали проти нас.
And then, when he's asked why so little,
Чому так? Мало.
he, being visibly uncomfortable, makes up some crap about Russians hiding behind other people's backs.
Ви знаєте, протягом усього часу конфлікту, як правило, росіяни завжди стоять позаду. Наперед вони випихали, як той казав, ополченців і всіх тих, хто називається найманцями.
Hashtag facepalm. By the way, that means that Poroshenko, in an interview with Western media, exaggerated the number of Russians by at least 3,571 times. He must think people in the West are real idiots, right? So all of you watching now know that there's a war here in Donbas. However, few people know that after Kiev wasn't able to defeat local men on the field of battle, they decided to redirect their attacks to most vulnerable people here: elderly, women, and children. In late 2014, Kiev imposed a total economic blockade of the region. Pensioners, people who worked for Ukraine for 30, 40, or 50 years, always paying taxes into the pension fund, no longer get pensions from Ukraine. All shipments of food or medicine from Ukraine are cut off. The logic behind this is if you stay behind, if you stay in your ancestral home, you're automatically a terrorist. So in effect, Kiev is either hoping millions of people will become refugees or starve to death. Honestly, Ukraine's logic sounds a lot like Vietnam-era destroy a village to save a village. But that was against potential enemy villages. Here, Kiev is trying to starve their own population into submission. We visited a local maternity hospital and talked to a doctor and to a woman who just gave birth, and asked them their opinions about what Ukraine is doing and how they're surviving in these conditions.
Вот за период активных боевых действий на территорию лечебного учреждения у нас упало 3 снаряда. Первый снаряд, это даже трудно назвать его снарядом, это, наверное, все-таки ракета РСЗО «Ураган», которая легла практически в 50-60 метрах от родильного дома. И у нас после этого взрыва не осталось ни одного окна, у нас не осталось дверей, у нас, по сути дела, рассыпалась крыша от ударной волны. Вот не было совершенно рядом, понимаете, никаких вооруженных подразделений. То есть обстреливались конкретно, обстреливались дома, жилой сектор. Бывший глава военно-гражданской администрации Луганской области говорил: все, кто остался на этой территории, все сепаратисты-террористы. Но я с ним не встречался, я бы задал ему вопрос. Даже если бы я хотел уехать с территории, куда мне уехать? У меня маме 88 лет. Как можно оставить детей, как можно оставить своих матерей? Кто после этого мы будем? Надо же исходить от истоков, откуда это все началось. А началось все с Майдана. И я думаю, что они должны прежде всего спросить у господина Порошенко, господина Яценюка, Турчинова, Порубея, а почему так сложилось? Поэтому нам некогда было выходить и митинговать. Мы просто работали и пополняли доходную часть бюджета всего государства Украины. Мы прекрасно помним, что говорит гарант Конституции Украины Петр Порошенко, который сказал, что наши дети будут учиться, наши дети будут оздоравливаться, а дети в Луганске и Донецке будут сидеть в подвалах. Ну это что? Это уровень президента. С 2014 года, совершенно мы ничего не получили. Более того, на мой взгляд, делали все возможное, чтобы сюда не попала ни одна таблетка. Мы сегодня ничего не получаем с Украины. Мы ничего не получали из Украины за вот этот период с 2014 года. Мы ждем мира, и мы благодарны сегодня Российской Федерации. Я это говорю откровенно. Мы благодарны за ту помощь, которую она оказывает. Мы бы без этой помощи не выжили.
Российских оккупантов я тут ни одного не видела. Тут все у нас хорошо. Все наши мужчины нас защищают. Знаете, вот чем дальше, тем больше местное население настраивается против Украины, потому что Порошенко делает все действия, чтобы ничего тут хорошего не осталось. Все нам заблокировали, банковскую систему, и никаких грузов не перевозят сюда нам. Все только, как сказать, можем только все поехать и купить в России, а в Украине вообще нет возможности. Правильно? Потому что никто не пропустит. Блокпосты поставили, ой, на станице один только. А так даже в Украину никакой возможности даже проехать нет. Даже за продуктами, если вдруг там что дешевле. Ну и все. А на станицу тоже то не пропускают. Вот у нас, да, даже к родственникам не можем поехать. Украину можно сравнить с человеком, который, поссорившись с другим человеком, делает, наоборот, ему какие-то гадости. Вместо того, чтобы показать, что мы много потеряли, а потому что мы не хотели быть вместе с ними, они, наоборот, делают чем хуже, чем дальше, тем хуже. Вместо того, чтобы начать переговоры, там, уговорить, сказать, что вот все будет хорошо, они, наоборот, сразу начали воевать, сразу кинули на нас войска, начали бомбить, причем неожиданно, без предупреждения. То есть начали делать все то, что люди уже даже и не простят. Начали наносить вред местному населению, мирным людям, когда тут даже вообще никаких войск не было. Даже ополченцы еще не собрались, они уже начали военные действия, грубо говоря, против нас.
In my first video, I showed examples of some of the thousands of horrible and toxically hateful Ukrainian comments about the people in Donbas. Today, just to drive my point of Ukrainian hatred towards Donbas home, I have compiled some quotes from Ukrainian politicians, military leaders, and public figures. I could have shown thousands of these, but you don't have a couple of days listening to hate speech. So here, just a few.
Ми ніколи не змінимо цього агресора. Хіба маємо один шлях – знищити Москву. Задля цього і живемо. Задля цього прийшли в цей світ, аби знищити Москву. Не просто москаля на наших землях, аби знищити цю чорну діру європейської безпеки.
That's Irina Farion, a member of parliament. In her views, Moscow is the internal enemy, and anyone who sympathizes with Russia or dares to speak the Russian language, like the vast majority of people in southeast Ukraine, are traitors and need to be wiped out, or filtered out. First thing we need to do is announce, using loudspeakers, that civilians have to leave the territory in a day or two. After this, everyone who remains in the territory is declared an accomplice to the enemy. Terrorists who want to surrender will be provided with such opportunity. People will need to be let out through filtration camps. That is technically not difficult. This is Borislav Bereza, a member of parliament who also calls for filtration of people of Donbas on his official Facebook page. Mikhailo Koval, a minister of defense at the time, echoes him by publicly saying that people in liberated Donbas will need to be filtered.
Буде проводитись повна фільтрація людей. Це ці спеціальні фільтраційні заходи проводяться.
Last time politicians and military leaders in Europe tried to filter populations, we ended up with various Yugoslavian genocides. Before then, this guy was a fan of camps for certain ethnic groups. That didn't end too well for some 6 million people. But 6 million apparently is a small number for some. In this phone intercept, former prime minister and current head of one of Ukraine's biggest parties, Ms. Yulia Tymoshenko, answers the question of what to do with 8 million ethnic Russians in Ukraine. Listen to her answer.
А что теперь делать оставшимся 8 миллионам русских, которые остались на территории Украины?
Блин, их расстреливать из атомного оружия.
Kill 8 million people with nukes for their ethnicity. Sounds like a plan. Bogdan Budkevich, a well-known Ukrainian journalist, is much kinder. Not all citizens of Donbas need to be killed. Only 75 to 80% are in that category of people.
Якщо брати навіть чисто Донецьку область, там приблизно 4 мільйони населення. Щонайменше 1,5 мільйона там просто зайвих людей, їм не буде роботи ніколи. Нам не треба розуміти Донбас, нам треба розуміти взагалі український національний інтерес. А Донбас треба просто використати як ресурс. Корисних людей для України відсотків, за моїми розрахунками, відсотків 20-25. Найголовніше, що треба зробити в даний момент, як це там жорстоко не прозвучить, є певна категорія людей, яких треба просто вбити.
However, others have more ingenious plans as well. Here, the mayor of Dnipropetrovsk, Ukraine's second largest city, has the following idea. Let's promise these bastards, in this case ethnic Russians, anything they want and give them any guarantees they want. As for hanging, we'll start hanging them later. Democratic, right? And of course, this list would not be complete without the following quote from President Poroshenko. This is what he says about people who are supposedly his citizens and who he supposedly wants to liberate.
У нас робота буде, у них немає. У нас пенсії будуть, у них немає. У нас піклування під дітей, під людей, під пенсіонерів, під дітей буде, у них немає. У нас діти підуть до школи і до дитячих садків, у них вони будуть сидіти в підвалах. У нас діти підуть до школи і до дитячих садків, у них вони будуть сидіти в підвалах.
Their kids will be hiding in basement bomb shelters, while our kids will be in schools and kindergartens. That's the love Donbas gets from the president. The president who is self-styled peacekeeper, by the way. Again, are there any questions while the people here are fighting and dying to keep such peacekeepers out of their homes? We hope this video helps you better understand what is going on here in Donbas. And we have gotten words of support and positive feedback from all over the world. However, besides the evidence comments, we also got some negative ones. And my favorite one by far is the dog people of Donbas, which is crazy because the person who accuses me of lying doesn't even realize that he verifies that very intense hatred that I'm talking about in his very comment. Also, a lot of comments accuse me of being Russian propaganda or even drunk Russian propaganda. I would like to respond to that. According to the dictionary, propaganda is information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. Please, if you find any factually misleading information or lies in my videos, let me know and I will apologize for them. But everything I have brought up so far has been factually verified. So if you feel like you have to comment, I think a more honest comment would be, I want to believe in something different. These things you're saying, these facts, contradict my worldview, so please stop doing it. Or something like that. That would be much more honest. Thank you for watching. In the comments section, please let us know what other things you want for us to cover. And if you disagree with something, please comment also, but try to use factually based information. And I will gladly engage in conversation, so hopefully we will find the truth, which is usually somewhere in the middle. And please help share this video with as many people as possible. We need the world to know what is going on here in Donbas. And please like and subscribe. Thank you.